I can't breathe. These were the last words spoken by a black man before they not only took his life away, but also they did his dignity. And I have been trying to understand why. Whole last week, I have been like very concerned. Why is this happening to my country? How did we get here?
Welcome, everyone. In the series of Black Lives Matter dialogue we are having with different set of people, different people from different experiences, varied background. Last time we spoke with first generation South Asians, Indians mostly. And today we are going to talk to South Asian young generation, second generation, which most of them or all of them were born in the US and lived their lives in the US. Whereas we grew up in India, these folks have lived only in the US and have experienced everything there is to experience in terms of race discriminations, in terms of American life, which we didn't get to see growing up. We have been experiencing this historical times. We are at a juncture where we are seeing it's a revolution in the making, or this is revolution, whatever it is, but this is historical times. And we are going to talk to this millennial, Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, all these generations. So let's hear from them, what they think, what is going on in this world. Chetna, before we get the introduction, anything to add?
So I just want to add like why we are here today, just so that our listeners know why we are here today. So as an Asian immigrant, South Asian immigrant, many years ago, who came to this country in search of a better life, I am guilty of not keeping up with all the history and all the happenings that were happening around me. I was just so busy making my life in this country, and but I'm sure my children, which all of you panelists today represent, and their friends, this new generation, the second generation South Asians, are the ones who have grown up with these kids, black kids, white kids, and all races. So I'm here to learn for myself the history of why and how we got to this movement today, why all this is happening in my country, and also see how we South Asian uncle and aunties can actually join the movement and bring that revolution, that change.
Let me introduce these participants, panel of participants today, and then we will go into a dialogue.
So my name is Avnish Mehra. I grew up here in the US, but when I was 18, I actually moved to India and I lived there for about 8 years. So I have experience in the opposite way that you guys have, living in multiple countries. I recently completed my degree from Columbia University in Middle Eastern, South Asian, and African Studies with a focus on South Asia. And I'm a writer, director, actor, musician, magician, DJ, among many other things. I do a lot, jack of all, master of one, as I like to say. And I spent a lot of time thinking about sort of where we are today in terms of the history of our world and what is the future of humanity. So I write about it on my website. You can check it out, avnish.org.
Great. Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Reshma?
Hi, everyone. My name is Reshma. I'm a healthcare consultant. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I moved down here for my husband's residency at VCU, and we live close to the hospital. It's very interesting over the last 4 or 5 years. This area has been quickly gentrified, and I just have a lot of interest in just sharing how the community feels. And I'm not a subject matter expert by any means on this topic, but I think I have a lot to say of just what I've observed over the past 5 years.
Yeah, we are here just to express our thoughts and opinions. So
Yes.
I don't know if anybody can claim to be expert. But
and I think experiences are what we are looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your thoughts and ideas. Priya, you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Priya Mahfooz. I'm 33, born and raised in the US. I went to UMBC for my undergrad. and in political science, and I have an MBA with focus on marketing. Right now I work for AstraZeneca in marketing, but I have always had a passion for law and civility and history. I'm one of those people that sort of keeps up with the news regularly. So in recent months, or especially over the past few weeks, I've been very moved in, I would say, sort of a polarizing way. One, I've been really sad seeing what's happened. There have been, and it feels like it's kind of an incredible storm of just sickness and bad politics and racial divide. And so this has been an especially hard time for me as I think about my country. But then also on the opposite side, feeling really excited about sort of the uprising that has and the sense of community that has come out of this. And I've been thinking especially a lot about my South Asian community. So I'm excited to have this conversation.
Great.
Welcome.
And next is Shamir.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shamir Wali. I'm a 24-year-old content creator. A lot of my content is South Asian comedy mixed with American elements. And a lot of our comedy is actually parodying rap music, which is very popular in the African-American communities. And also, I grew up in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And fun fact, Gaithersburg is actually one of the most diverse suburbs in the country. So these issues that are occurring right now are, as you can tell, like very meaningful to me. And yeah.
I live in Gaithersburg too. Did not know that is one of the most diverse. I knew it was diverse.
Yeah. No, it's actually rated up there. Top
really?
5, I think.
Not even suburb, just city in general. It's
City in
actually in the
general.
top 10 list of one of the most diverse cities. It's Gaithersburg, Germantown, this area, and then San Francisco Bay Area. Those are like kind of top.
Good
most
to know
diverse.
that.
Yeah.
So
Thank you,
Shamir,
thank
good
you.
to have you here.
Thank
Actually.
you. Thank you
Yeah,
guys for
welcome.
having me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate this. I'm sure this
Yeah.
is very helpful for everyone here.
Yes.
Yes.
And Rupa.
Hi, my name's Rupa Cunningham. I am a downtown Washington, D.C. homeowner for the last 11 years. University of Maryland, a long time ago, not like these, and self-employed in the city. I do hair.
Great. Welcome. I'm so delighted to have at least people around me of your caliber and young people who are ready and willing to talk to us. And you are not one of those people who avoid me or avoid us because we are uncles and aunties of South
Yes.
Asian society. And we know how you guys feel. And we know why you feel certain way, the way, because we have a different cultural background. We come from a different perspective altogether. It's very hard for us to relate with some of the things. And I think racial injustice is one of those things. All of our lives, we have heard is, the black is ugly and black people are somewhat different. They are not part of us. They are different people who do a lot of crimes, and all these things are happening has nothing to do with what we are doing. I want to break those barriers. I want to break those vision of racism that has lived with us all of our lives. So I've learned a lot from you all. So what we want to do today is educate us. Tell us what this fight is all about. Is it about police brutality? Is it about just regular racism, which we have seen all of our lives? Is it political agenda of some people? Is it leftist movement? Or is it systemic racism, systemic discrimination that we are trying to abolish? So let's start with, I will start with Rupa. Rupa, you want to start?
I've just kind of had a different, I think, perspective than everyone else, because I'm the person who, I said last time also, has been very shocked that everyone else is very surprised that this is a huge problem. So everything you said, the Black Lives Matters movement is a little bit of everything you said. And after our last talk, I sat around a lot thinking about brown culture and what role we play. And my husband and I were joking about who remembers Mississippi Masala, the movie? Yeah. Oh, did these guys watch? These guys are so young. I believe that's the movie that had that famous line, Kala Kuluta Bangan Luta.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
That's a derogatory phrase used in India.
So how much it's woven into like the comedy of the movie, or like, it's just so much. It depends on where you want. Like, I'm going to let you lead the conversation, but it's, where do you start? Like, it's just so much.
So, so I would say to that, Rupa, that seriously, before this incident that happened last week, I admit that I used to just close my eyes to these issues. And I'm like, this is not my fight. Why should I bother? You know, some black guy. I mean, they always are into crime and stealing and doing all these bad things. And why should I care? You know, it's okay. They deserve it, you know, kind of mindset. But after talking to you guys last week and talking to a lot of other people in the last 1 week, I realized that the issue is much deeper. The hurt is much deeper. And I really want you guys to talk and tell us where all this is coming from and how we can
Right.
change.
I think it's
Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel
Yeah.
that strongly?
well, again, from the other perspective, why is this death so different for everyone?
Maybe because
Right.
it was on, because it was taped, it was videotaped. Everybody
too-
saw it over and over and over again.
Too graphic?
Very
No, it's
graphic.
not only graphic. I think there were more graphic things, but because everybody was able to see it.
I was gonna say, like, I always thought, you know, for us as humans to come together, we would need like a third enemy. You know, we would need like some sort of enemy for all of us to come together. And I think for a second we had that, which was the virus. You know, we all were helping each other, right? And for these little 2 weeks, 3 weeks that people were all in their homes and stuff, this racism still surpassed all that. Why? How? Like, come on, really? Like, just all school shootings went down to 0 because obviously no one's going to school. All this, we are expecting all this to be at 0, but it still happened. And everyone's in their homes and everyone's emotions are heightened, and it's still not right that this is
At
still
the
happening.
exact same rate. Like the environment has gotten, but the planet has gotten better, and still the numbers of Black deaths by police officers is exactly the same as this month in 2019.
Wow.
That's incredible. Think of the number of people that are out on the streets. It's nothing.
Yeah.
And for them to be able to kill Black Americans at the same rate in this month, that's unbelievable.
Right. Reshma, you were going to say something. You raised your hand up.
I was just going to say, I think it's been impactful because the world has kind of stopped and they're forced to actually pay attention to this issue. You're not, you know, leaving your house early in the morning to go to work and picking up your kids from daycare. Like, I mean, you're busy, but you're not nearly as busy as you used to be. And I mean, the economy has kind of come to a halt. And so this time around, you don't get to hide behind your busyness when it's recorded on screen. You have to address it, and you have nowhere to go. You have nowhere to be. You have to face it front on, and so head on. And so this time it's making people uncomfortable because you can't have anywhere to deflect.
Yeah.
You have nowhere.
As someone who, for me, Trayvon Martin's death was huge. This is a child who literally got hunted down for having a piece of candy and juice in his pocket because he was wearing a hoodie. Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner. From my perspective, I think this time it was a wake-up call for a lot more people because George Floyd was so defenseless.
Yes.
Finally got to see. He literally wasn't resisting arrest. He wasn't fighting anybody. There was people looking that officer right in the face and saying, "You're wrong, stop." And he literally looked at everyone and kept that pressure going. No matter how much Floyd asked for his mom, said he couldn't breathe, urinated on himself, I think everyone finally saw the brutality of it with no question whatsoever. You can't say he reached for something and got shot. He tripped on something and like something happened. They can't blame him. He was so defenseless. And I think everybody finally saw that.
Avnish, I was
Yeah.
going to ask
So
you, so that you've been quiet. So what are your thoughts on where do you see this is heading? Where do you think this is going to die? This is real, or this is temporary, or where do you think it's going?
so this is absolutely real. I think this moment, as others have said, it's the timing of it that's really important to recognize. People were locked down for a couple of months, and there's growing unemployment in this country. There's a lot of frustration. Also, we cannot forget the nuanced part of this that, unfortunately, especially in New York City, African American and Latino communities were disproportionately affected by the virus than other communities. That's because they were in lower income neighborhoods. There may potentially, I don't want to get into the science of this, may potentially be other factors. But I think it was sort of the perfect storm of people, this was an issue that was boiling up from the bottom. And when this happened to George Floyd, plus what happened to that white lady in Central Park, these two incidents kind of, channeled off each other. And it just, young people, I think, needed a catalyst to get out onto the streets and to get angry. And I think we're going to see something really fundamentally change in the world, because I think people have had enough. And I keep telling my parents, young people, we're the future. So whether you like it or not, it's what we say is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's a lot more of us than there is of you.
I saw this one person, it was like a picture of the protest that has been happening, and he was holding a sign that said, "You have fucked with the last generation." And it really spoke to me because I was like, really, like, please let this be the last one that tolerates.
But does it make you angry? Does it make you angry, enraged? How does it make you feel, you guys?
Extremely angry.
Also, also recognize to Reshma's point, why is it our generation that is the one to actually change? It's because we are getting information at an incredibly rapid rate.
Right.
When it was a Vietnam War protest, or when it was the protests during Martin Luther King's time or whatever, you sit around, you watch TV, you may be lucky to catch whatever's happening, and that's it. But for us, we're getting news constantly. We are so connected, and that's made us kind of feel things in a very different way than any other generation before us.
It's also the most open. I was going to say, it's also the most open generation in general. Like conversations about sexuality, about different gender, about gender relations, about saving the environment, about healthcare. These conversations are so openly discussed now. And, as the country becomes more diverse, and including all of the access. I mean, when I was growing up, we studied globalization from an economic standpoint, and the impact it had on society, right? If we think about that and then add in the internet and add in social media, I mean, the impact is just so much quicker and so much more severe and immediate reactions, I think. And that's sort of what we're seeing right now too.
So I have a question, and Shamir, I want you to participate in that very actively as well. I know you all grew up with the Indian parents, and I don't know whether your parents felt or were racist in certain ways, the way most of the Indians grew up, or even from Pakistan. And by the way, I said that to Shamir because his parents come from Pakistan, and they are Muslim, so they have a different perspective altogether, different one, and I would like to explore that as well. But coming from India and Pakistan, from our generation, we are born racist. Now, your parents were racists or not, or your aunties and uncles, somebody in the close proximity, you grew up with the racist people, and then you had to go out and mingle with people of every race. The dichotomy of dealing with two different sides of this issue, how would you reflect on that? Shamir, go.
So I mean, I would like to say my parents are very progressive in that sense. Like they, get a lot of information. They speak to so many different types of people. So they aren't as, however, they do interact with people that are.
Right.
Like I have seen it, and I have friends, their parents are definitely racist. They're like, oh, kale log, which means like black people. Like they kind of look at them a little lower. But however, still with my parents, the only way they mostly get information is through the TV, right? Through the news. My mom, she kind of sees stuff online and Facebook and stuff. But I think, you know, Twitter and Instagram are very valuable places where we see firsthand on what's going out on the protests and what's going out on the streets and what these cops are actually doing. And on the news, you only see the lens of, you know,
yeah,
like the bad stuff.
right.
White America.
Rupa.
Say it, white America.
Rupa.
Can I say one thing about accessing information through social media, if you don't mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
That I think would be important.
Go ahead.
So as I mentioned before, I have a marketing background, and I think it's important and so I have sort of a back-end experience with social media marketing and how information gets disseminated on social media. Actually every single social media platform has sort of an algorithm that feeds you information based on what you have sifted through. Right. So if you went and you clicked through just for the sake of, you know, your quote unquote seeking balanced information, if you went on a Fox page on Facebook, you're going to start seeing through Facebook's algorithm a lot more Fox News articles. So I hesitate when I'm having conversations with people as we all talk about getting information through different sources, and particularly online. I think we should be really conscious and continue to inform people that the information you get online is not pure either. Right. It's fed to you on purpose. So you feel this oversaturation of the same kind of content that you're getting, and it's intentional. So if you're seeking outside information, you have to make an effort. If you're looking for a balanced perspective, you have to actually go out of your way to find it.
Okay. Yeah, independent things. But like also, I'm going to believe one of you, what you tell me you're seeing while you're marching on my street down the road, before I believe Channel 5 or Channel 9. That's the difference.
That's true.
I will literally see something and be like, oh, heck no. And before you know it, I'm sending it to Priya and Reshma and everybody else. I'm like, you need to see this. You need to share this. Yeah. We need to get this word out. That's the difference right now. We're also not afraid to do it. Like, you know, you have a generation of people being like, no care of the authority thing. Like, we know what's up. We are educated. We've seen it with our own eyes, and we have each other. And that's what matters. So that makes a big difference. I think this time, if you have eyewitnesses, live feeds, I can't tell you how many live feeds I'm seeing, or I'm asking someone to be like, where are you now? Let's meet, anything. It's the technology has changed a lot, and it's been the most important thing. Grassroots, basically.
I was going to ask that, Rupa, you lived in Baltimore City also, right? You have seen it far more than probably other people, because you work in Baltimore as well as Washington, D.C. downtown. Both have a very high population of Black people as well. And you have seen the mistreatment and all those things. So do you want to expand on that? What has been your experience in terms of working with Black people and discrimination and racism?
Again, like I did the whole Indian thing. I was raised being told, you got to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you better be an engineer. And I went that route. I went towards med school and was like, I don't want to do med school. I went through the legal route and I worked for the prosecutor's office in Montgomery County. Didn't like it one bit. I worked for the victim witness program. Did not like what I saw at all. I worked as a social worker in Baltimore City in the Department of Juvenile Justice. Didn't like it. Wanted to have nothing to do with any of it. Decided to do hair. Again, it's so shocking to me that people just don't see it. Montgomery County is very diverse. Mm-hmm. All these kids have been raised diverse. We've been raised diverse. We're walking with people who get called the N-word, or get called, instead of like the B word, you get called a black bee or anything else, you know? I don't want to cuss and offend anybody, but like, these are our everyday things. Like, how do you not see this? Or a big thing in the hair world is how many Caucasian hair products, magazines, stylists, how many people of color do you see? How many, you know, like, it's only been recently that technology started that we can have blonde hair. So like, there's it's just surprising to me that it's exposure.
Not surprising. I mean, you think about like our parents. I've never seen my parents go out of their way to hang out with their American friends or coworkers. And I mean, yeah, if you're gonna be tribal, then you're gonna start having implicit bias, whether you like it or not, you know? And I mean, that's essentially what you're doing. You move from one country to the other, and I understand you have things in common with your Indian friends, but then you never, like Shamir and you guys are asking how come his parents aren't racist when a lot of the other parents in his generation are racist. And the first thing that caught my attention was when he said, my parents talk to many different kinds of people. I mean, doing that with intention, like, I mean, that's just invaluable. It's hard. It's a simple thing you can do, is getting to know people that are not like you, that don't have the same background. It's simple conversations. And I mean, I guarantee just starting there for our parents' generation would be a huge step forward. And I get it. I mean, I don't quite get it because I didn't migrate from, you know, another country and start my whole life over. Like, that was extremely hard, I'm sure. But, you know, I've mentioned to my mom, like, you have such a good time. When I visited her at work, I was like, you're having such a good time. Like, I kind of feel like you're more yourself around your coworkers and letting loose than your judgy Indian friends, which is so funny to me. And I was like, why don't you hang out with them, or why don't you invite them over or something? And then she was kind of like, no, I can't, or we don't go over each other's houses, or I don't even know how I would go about that or something. And I mean, it's just backwards to me. I was like, you're more comfortable with them. You're being yourself, but you don't want to hang out with them.
Yeah. So Resh, I have a question. Like, you are in Richmond, and you went to school there, born and raised in Richmond. There's so much Black community around you. When you talk about like that your parents and your uncle and aunts, they don't communicate, or they don't associate or socialize so much with their co-workers, which are different races. But all of you who are in the panel today, you grew up with these kids. You first-hand experience. So no matter how much, even when we try to associate with them, we can never get that first-hand experience of making friendships and just not seeing the difference in your eyes of Black, white, or any other race. To you, all of them were your friends, right? So, and I think the whole idea of sitting here with you guys is try to understand. So the outrage that you feel in your hearts is that because you don't see any difference? Don't you see Black with a different thing? And do you get shocked when other people look at Black people as, oh my God, he's a Black guy? Is that where it's coming from? Avnish, I'll ask you, like, when you talk about change in the world, this revolution that's coming up.
So I'll share a little something with,
how can you bring it on? How do you bring it on? I mean, we understand that. I don't know what we can do in our generation, except for changing our viewpoints.
So I'll share a little something with you, actually. When I was in high school, this was what, 13, 14 years ago, something like that. I made a film for one of my classes. It was all about racism in Montgomery County, in Gaithersburg. And I interviewed some white guys. I asked them to kind of give me their perspective, and I interviewed some of my Black friends. When you get to know these guys, they have their own way of talking. They have their own way of living. They have their own life. And you got to get to understand people. I think that's one of the biggest problems, that we're not even opening a conversation. We're afraid to talk about race. It is virtually impossible to not see color. I'm sorry, but we see it. It's natural as human beings. The question is, do you make judgments? And if you even make judgments, are you doing it in the sense like, this guy's my boy, he does, X, Y, Z sometimes, and I make fun of him. And, there's a difference between a comedy type of thing, like what Shamir that we like to do. And there's difference between actually saying, no, this is, I don't like you because of X, Y, Z. And you asked me the question about sort of the future of humanity. This is not a problem that is isolated to America. In India also, or in South Asia, you have the Dalit community. And there's also this sort of, fair-skinned sort of obsession. Fair and Lovely is a common product that people are buying. And if you look at the celebrities in the Indian film industry, the vast majority of them are fair-skinned, upper middle class Punjabis. It's something that needs to change. We need to start recognizing that they have their own stories to tell, and we need to know what those stories are. And we need to see them as people, not just as the color of their skin.
I think also, I wanted to respond to your question about how, at least it has made me feel, and I'm sure a lot of other people of my generation feel, when we see our communities talk about people of other races in negative ways. You're right, we grow up with all of these people, but think about like your closest friend in the whole wide world. If your parents came and said to you, oh, people with her type of hair color are just, they steal, they're lazy, they don't do anything, they don't deserve, to be treated equally, they should, they should complain better, they should do things a little bit better. It hurts your heart, right? It hurts you in a way, like, I love this person deeply. And you're telling me that just because of her haircut, just because of the glasses she wears, something that seems so minuscule to you because you know the person as a person, it hurts your soul. So when we leave our homes after hearing negative comments about other races, and we go into schools and we see the kids that we're growing up with, that we're playing with, and that we're talking about music with, and we're talking about pop culture with, we're talking about school and homework and all of these just regular everyday lives with, to hear that there's such hatred when we just see the person is hard to grow up with. And also, we are not blind to color by any means. We go out, and at least for me, when I saw a group of people, I inherently relate to people of color more than I do white Americans. And so if my community is so hateful towards the people that I feel more naturally related to in this vast mixing bowl of people, it becomes hurtful and becomes, I think, almost a disservice to the way that kids of immigrants are raised here.
Very well said. So let's do this. I think we got a good idea. What I want to do is take a short break, and we'll come back and talk about the solution. I want to focus a little bit from your point of view, what the solution is, where do we need to go, and what we need to do. So let's take a break, and we'll be right back.